Guys, I'm pissed. I can't hide it. I gotta be blunt. I gotta be honest. In our latest Mets post-game show that is live right here, right now, we're gonna break down everything that transpired and what was nothing short of an infuriating loss for the Mets by a final score of 4-3 to end up losing this series, their second series loss of the year. For the first time this season, the Mets have lost back-to-back games, and this was a game where they not only shot themselves in the foot multiple times, an umpire absolutely screwed them on a call, and then a half inning later exited the game with an apparent injury. And yes, that's true. We have so much to get into in this one, but I'm still pretty fuming. I'm pretty pissed. This game just ended right now, and to have the Mets lose in the walk-off fashion the way that they just did when they had everything set up there in the top of the 10th inning to score with extra runner on, that being in Juan Soto, and then for the Polar Bear to get on with a walk. You got runners on there in scoring position, less than 2 out, and you do not pounce. Obviously, I'm not going to be happy about that as a Mets fan, and we have a plethora of things to get into in this one. How you doing, everybody? It's your guy, Wardy, here. We're back at it with our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show presented by SeatGeek and BetUS TV. Shout out to them both. We really appreciate them. And in this matchup, we had Justin Hageman towing the rubber here, making his MLB debut and a multi-inning, technically relief outing because Huascar Brosman got the spot start, but a really solid outing for Justin Hageman when, of course, what wasn't backing him up? It was the offense. The Mets offense did not hit an absolute lick pretty much up until the 8th inning, and they had their rally going. They had the Pete Alonso shades of his game-tying bomb against the Marlins there that we saw in the 8th inning in their series finale against Miami in their first matchup between themselves and Miami this year. Then they won in extras, so the Mets had things working in their favor. They got the momentum on their side that we saw there in the 8th inning, but it would not be enough as they ultimately falter in extras because Byron Buxton at second base to start an extra inning is pretty much a recipe for disaster as soon as it begun, everybody. A lot of breakdown in this one, and I want to know your initial reactions, your frustration level, and everything that you have to say about this ball game in the chat right now, as well as in the comments down below to all of our replay viewers, and thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. We're going to get into Soto. We're going to get into the pros, the cons, and everything in between in this matchup, everybody. But let me do a quick roll call in here. How you doing, John? Happy to have you in here. Chad, how you doing? Great member. Shrex, how you doing? D-Mac, great member. Dale, how you doing? James going up the list. Scott, how you doing? Calm all the way down. Pardon me. You have to calm down all the Mets fans who think the season is over already. No, I don't think any Mets fan thinks the season is over already, as a matter of fact. I think we're having a pretty rational reaction to the fact that the Mets lost a game and lost a series that they should not have lost. You know, there's differences between saying, okay, this team clearly was the better one, clearly outplaying, and the other where it's like, okay, you shot yourselves in the foot. If you just pounced for once with runners in scoring position before the end of the ball game, you would find yourself in a position to succeed. Not the case for the Mets for the most part until we saw in that 8th inning, which was great. And of course, there's nothing worse than an absolute tease where you're losing multiple runs in a ball game. You tie it up there late in the 8th or 9th inning, and you still lose when everything is said and done. Pat, how you doing in here? Great member. As always, baby, we love to have you. 3 years of being a Warden member. You were an absolute beast. And Soto misses Judge says absolutely nobody, but I know that's your World Series right now, Pat, so continue to run away with it the way that I know you will. How we doing, everybody? Going up the list here. RMX, how you doing? DMAC, great member. Zach Flagerton, Onsell, you and I both were really used to losing because the Braves and the Mets have done that in back-to-back games now. Jack Daddy, how you doing? Going up the list. And that was in Spencer Strider's debut, mind you, as well. And still, it didn't matter in the end, everybody. Let's get into this one. I'm so pissed. I'm sorry. This is raw reaction Wardy right now. It's nothing more frustrating when you had an opportunity to pounce the way that I truly felt that the Mets did in this matchup, and they just couldn't win it in the end. BC, how you doing? Thank you so much for chiming in. We appreciate you guys. Before we get this thing going here, just ever so briefly, everybody, check out our awesome friends at BetUS TV that have you covered all the latest odds, picks, and lines. Juan Soto and Pete Alonso are there at the current plus 1,000 and plus 2,000 odds to win National League MVP this year. Alonso was more of Alonso yet again today, leading the way for this Mets team outside of Jesse Winker, while Soto had himself easily his worst game of the season. He did not take quality at bats today, and there is rightful criticism with how Juan performed today with runners in scoring position. Regardless on where you guys stand, if you think Soto or Alonso has a greater chance to win MVP, should you wish to buy, bet especially, check out our awesome friends at BetUS TV, and thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. But guys, let's get into this one. I gotta rapid fire it because I'm so so pissed off right now. It started there that we saw in the first, everybody, where Festa goes a 1-2-3 inning where Juan Soto would strike out. He would be the lone strikeout in the first. In the bottom of the first, Huasca Brosman comes in, and Brazo works a 1-2-3 inning, including one strikeout. Great work by Brosman, who got the spot start for the Mets. That reminded me of the first spot start I feel like the Mets have had in the minute, and it also reminded me of Aaron Loup when he won an inning or two against the Pittsburgh Pirates back in 2021. Remember Aaron Loup, everybody? I digress. As we get on to the second inning, we would see Jesse Winker rip a double to lead off things, which was great to see. Nimmo then would opposite field single, but for whatever reason, Mike Sarbaugh at third base was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's let Jesse round third and try to bolt to home. He was thrown out a mile away by, yes, you guessed it, Harrison Bader, who was absolutely killing the Mets from start to finish for every inning that he played in this series. From the Game 2 matchup yesterday to Game 3 today, I told you guys Harrison Bader would be without question the biggest problem for the Mets, and that is exactly what ended up happening here, folks. We would see Bader throw out the runner, that being in Winker at home, with ease, and the Mets do not score a run after Nimmo gets on with that opposite field single. From there, Luis Angel Acuna, who got the start at second base today, while Brett Beatty got the start at third. Mark Vientos came off the bench today that we saw, and Beatty, I gotta give credit where credit's due. Brett, in a game where unfortunately it's gonna get overlooked, I think, because the Mets unfortunately lost such a frustrating game. Beatty looked very good defensively, and he hit the bat to ball well, had multiple hits today too. So as we await to find out what is the future of Brett Beatty, which Evan Neal returning in the coming days, whether that's this weekend or sometime next week, the Mets want to see what they have in Brett before everything is said and done on their decision making. Vientos, however, who's had hits in 3 consecutive games, didn't love the idea of him coming off the bench in this matchup, but regardless, let's continue on and break down from there, because as we would see, Taylor with a deep flyout then would end the second, everybody, and we would see in the bottom of the second, Larnach with a walk. Hageman then comes in, and Justin Hageman strikes out the first ever MLB batter he sees, and Mr. Jeffers. Then we see Lee with a flyout, and Castro with a strikeout ends it with that sinker. And the third, Brett Beatty with a flyout in his first at-bat of the day. Sanger with a deep flyout, so him and Tyrone Taylor both had balls getting close to the warning track, where Byron Buxton has to make a nice snag in order to get the final out there. Lindor then with a strikeout would end things, as we then get to the bottom of the third, and Harrison Bader in his first at-bat of the day does exactly what you'd expect Harrison Bader to do. He gets on base, this time with a one-out single. Julian with a double, and Beatty gets Bader out at home with a great heads-up play there on a throw in the infield. And Buxton would reach on fielder's choice. Ty France then strikes out, and that does it for the inning. And the fourth, everybody, as we get on there, we would see Pete Alonso with a one-out single. Winker with a strikeout. Nimmo with a two-out walk. And Acuna would be called out on strikes in what was a quality at-bat, a 9-pitch at-bat. That's a 95 fastball up and away, and that would be the key difference maker there. Yes, that being, and I apologize, everybody. I'm just so flustered by this loss still, so I need a minute to ground myself. We would see Acuna, unfortunately, strike out there to end the inning. Solid job by Festa. Hageman with a 1-2-3 fourth inning, so great job by him as we then get to the fifth. And in the fifth, Tyrone Taylor and Brett Beatty, what do they have in common? They both get on base here with a single. Hayden Singer then strikes out. Lindor with a hit by pitch, and this loads the bases with a one out, everybody, for Juan Soto. And what does Juan Soto do? He first pitch swings and grounds into a double play. I understand that when it comes to Soto, who really hasn't gotten too many pitches to hit so far this year, pouncing on seeing a middle pitch. I completely understand that. That is my gripe with Juan Soto here. My gripe is the fact that, again, your first pitch swinging, so again, you're doing it with authority, you're doing it with confidence, and for you to top that one over the way that you did was such a rally killer in that moment. The Mets needed offense, and Juan Soto continues his significant struggles with runners of scoring position, because with the exception of Juan Soto's home run that we just saw this past day or so, he has not hit at all with runners in scoring position so far this season. And up until he hit that home run that finally changed the narrative, Juan was 0 for 12. Oh, okay, good news, everybody. Griffin Canning is clear to start tomorrow for the Mets. That's actually fantastic news. So really, really happy to see that. That means the Mets aren't going to have to rush or force anything. So bear that in mind. Okay, everybody, just some breaking news for you for tomorrow's game. Griffin Canning will be towing the rubber and getting the game on start there for the St. Louis Cardinals matchup, and we're going to be live for that game in the Playback app for you guys to check out, as well as here live on YouTube. Playback, which we have linked down below the description, everybody, to check out, is a absolutely fantastic universal sports app to use, in which if you have an MLB TV account, you sign into it after making a free account in playback.tv/WardyNYM, link down below to check out, everybody. Then you sign in with your MLB TV subscription, should you have one, and then you'll be able to watch the Mets game live and in real time, and even listen to the broadcast with your guy Wardy throughout the entire course of the ball game. Again, that'll be live tomorrow, starting 6:45 p.m. Eastern. I will give you guys a further update on the community tab here on the YouTube channel to check it out. But simply put, let's get back to breaking down what was a absolutely brutal way to lose a series for the Amazons. Because on one hand, I see the upside in saying the boys rallied. They're never saying die, and that's certainly a good thing. I'm not complaining about the fact that the boys rallied. What I'm complaining about is the fact that it took the Mets not hitting a lick until the 8th inning to cause that rally. Furthermore, you had opportunity in the extra innings, and we'll get to that here shortly, and you do anything but pounce. So naturally, as a Mets fan who covers every single game throughout the course of the year, your boy's going to be a little frustrated when things don't go in our favor, the way that they have handsomely for the most part this season, even while the Bats have had their fair share of struggles on the runners and scoring position front. Extend Hageman. I tend to agree. All jokes aside, Justin Hageman was fantastic for the Mets today and deserves a lot of credit. We're going to expand more on his arsenal here shortly, D-Mac, but thank you for the donation. But as we get on to now the 5th, everybody, Taylor and Beatty with a single. We broke that down, right? Then we saw Soto with that double play, eventually ended things in the 5th. And the bottom of the 5th, a man that would actually exit this game towards the end due to injury. The Twins lost 4 players injury in this series, everybody, as well as what we saw there in Carlos Correa. Even though Correa came back as a defensive replacement later in the game, he did exit yesterday's game that we saw with wrist soreness and did not get the start today. Willie Castro, however, gets on with a double that we see in the bottom of the 5th. Kiersey with a ground out, and then here comes Jose Butto to try to clean up the mess here for Justin Hageman. And what happens? Butto right away allows an RBI single to Harrison Bader. Butto did not look good at all today, and I gotta be honest, guys, here's a take for you. Here's an overreactionary take. I'm emphasizing overreactionary because I know that this outing today does not define Jose Butto every time out there, but I will not at all be surprised if Jose Butto is a non-factor as a reliever option for the Mets by the time that we get halfway through the season. With the amount of depth that the Mets have in the farm, with guys like Daniel Nunez just sitting there waiting for the call, it's only going to take a couple bad outings from someone like Jose Butto to warrant the discussion and say, hey, they're going to be sent down, and that's going to be the difference. Right now, Butto, he may not have any more options on his contract, so I would like to clarify that. I don't know the actual status right now when it comes to his contract status. If you guys can let me know in the chat, I'd appreciate that. But Butto did not have an ideal day today. Far and away the Mets' worst reliever option between himself, Ryan Stanek, AJ Minter, Edwin Diaz, and Reed Garrett, because I can't give Reed Garrett hell. It's not his fault that there was an automatic speedster at second base with the first piece of contact that he gave up to start out this one. But guys, let's go on from there. So we would see Butto give up that RBI single to Harrison Bader. After that RBI single, that would make it 1-0 Minnesota. And mind you, that was the 5th hit for Harrison Bader and 6 at-bats against the Mets at this point in the series. So yeah, he's been an absolute pest and menace to say the least. Currently having his villain arc, and I'm sure he's very happy to win this series against our Mets. Buxton with an RBI single that makes it 2-0 as Harrison Bader comes in to score, and Buxton would get to second base on a bad throw, but Ty France, something that he did a lot this game, but sadly not where it mattered most for the Twins in the end, he would strike out there. In the 6th, Alonso, Winker, and Nimmo, what do they have in common? They go down in order 1, 2, 3. In the bottom of the 6th, we would see Jeffers with a walk, Castro with an RBI single, when, mind you, and this is where the big gripes come in, everybody, you have Hunter Wendelstedt, the first base ump today, making the most botched call at first base imaginable. So there are so many things frustrating with this, and you guys will see in the highlights beside me because I know I have it clipped in there. Pete Alonso gets the throw to first. Butto's there in time. Clearly touches the bag in time. He's called safe. Why? I have no clue. Hunter Wendelstedt, I didn't know if it was him or Helen Keller because they both clearly were seeing the same at first base. What do we come to find out? Okay, he steps on, he is in fact safe somehow, and instead of Jose Butto being quick with the reaction to get the throw to home, he hesitates, reacts to Wendelstedt, kind of challenging him for a second, like, what the hell are you doing? And then he turns and makes the quick throw to home. But of course, when you have the fastest mofo, not named Harrison Bader in this lineup, and Byron Buxton bolting down from third, what do you think is going to happen, right? That increases the runs there. That makes it a 3-0 Minnesota Twins lead. And the most frustrating aspect of this all, and I understand understand that that play didn't happen, then the remainder of the game wouldn't exactly be the same. But knowing that the Mets lost this game by a run in extras, when a run was absolutely stolen from them, pardon me, not stolen, a run was added when it should have never happened. And the only reason why this run came in to score, sadly, is because the Mets lost a challenge of a stolen base call earlier in this game. If that didn't happen, then there would have been no issues, and they, of course, couldn't. You see the highlights right there? The schmuck in Hunter Wendelstedt there, unfortunately, had the worst call imaginable. So naturally, me, like every other Mets fan, is giving him hell on social media, like we typically do. What happened next to half inning later is something that I by no means am condoned in favor of, and I feel really bad that it happened. And honestly, it's kind of bizarre when you see a play, Hunter Wendelstedt, not notorious for botching a play like that at first base. I know people don't love him as an ump to begin with, but the point is that that was such an anomaly thing to happen. And then a half inning later, an even greater anomaly happens as the following transpires, everybody. Luis Angel Acuna would strike out that we would see in the, in this top of the seventh. Then Tyrone Taylor, we would see, would ground out, but this is after drilling Hunter Wendelstedt in the head. Yes, you heard that correctly. Sadly, Tyrone had a scorching liner of a foul ball, and it not only hit Hunter, the first base ump there for this ball game, but it drilled him square in the side of the temple. Now, again, I was jaw-dropped when I saw that happen. I was disgusted. I was concerned for his well-being right away because Buddy didn't move at all when he was on the ground for a bit. Thankfully, he eventually got up under his own power, and I truly hope that he's okay. That's a serious deal. That's a head injury right there, and I really do hope that there's nothing serious beyond, God forbid, hopefully just like a normal grade 1 concussion at absolute worst, because that was not ideal to see. That was a scorcher off the bat that literally drilled him right in the head, and we had a lot of fans, the same way that I know that we have it right now in the chat, saying karma. But listen, that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I can be as pissed off as any other Mets fan when it comes to a situation like this, but I'm never going to say that, oh, karma, that this is what it is and this is a good thing to happen. It's quite the opposite, and it's disgusting to condone that kind of behavior. I'm not going to do it. Just an absolute bizarre turn of events over an inning span. You go from Buddy making the worst call imaginable at first base. Again, you have to be a blind bat. You have to be Helen Keller, in my opinion, to be that off with said call, and then a half inning later, that same man is taken out of the ball game due to an absolute fluke injury. So that's all I have to say about that. Very unfortunate. Don't wish that on anybody, even the people that I despise most, not only in baseball, but just in the industry itself. Doesn't change the fact that I never wish for something like that to happen. I truly hope that he is okay and everything's fine with him and his family. But as we continue on from there, everybody, we would see Brett Baty rip himself his second hit of the day, a 2-out single that we would see there, everybody, in the 7th inning, and that was, mind you, off of a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. So great job there by Baty. Terens then comes in, and unfortunately, Terens would ground out to end the inning as Terens came in as the pinch hitter for Hayden Senger. Senger got the start today, which made sense after Terens started the previous 2 games. From there, we saw Ryan Stanek come in, and Stanek was throwing gas early in this ball game, pumping 99 on the gun, but even with pumping 99 on the gun, it still allowed Julian to get on with a leadoff walk. Buxton net with a single because Acuna makes a great initial attempt of a play, but sadly, we would see Acuna not being able to make that proper throw, which allows him to be safe. Ty France strikes out, and thankfully, nothing else transpires in the inning. Ryan Stanek works through a clean inning of work, but it did take 21 pitches, so it wasn't as easy or as smooth as he was initially hoping for. As we then get on to the 8th inning, everybody, Francisco Lindor gets on with a single, and this was on a full count, a hanging slider in his favor, and this is where the boys start to pounce, right? You head to the 8th inning, you got the top of the order, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and who steps up, everybody, in this inning? Quite literally everybody but Juan Soto, and it crushes me to say that, but it's a reality. There are no lies told or detected right now. Soto strikes out on a changeup, and what was a piss poor at bat. He had 97 dotted right down the pipe that he could have hit on the pitch prior, and he took it. Then he gets called on the changeup, and that's that. Alonso steps up, as he has done all season long, as a polar bear rips himself an RBI double, his 13th extra base hit of the season, and his 21st RBI. To say that Pete Alonso is carrying the Mets right now on the offensive front is a fat understatement. This guy is going to have back issues like Lindor towards the end of the season. Knock on wood. I'm joking as I say that, with the point being, Lindor was our MVP and carried this team from May and a half on for the entirety of the summer. The Polar Bear has single-handedly carried this Mets team in more ways than one, and how many games so far this season, that has been impressive, and he deserves endless credit for what has been a tremendous start to the season for Pete Alonso, who is now batting .365 with over 1,200 OPS on the year. Yeah, that's pretty damn good if you ask me. But going on there from the Polar Bear, everybody, let's continue, because Jesse Winker, who got the party started with the Mets' first key hit of the day in the second with a double, he follows it up with another double. Back-to-back doubles for the Mets in the inning between Alonso and Winker. Jesse would drive at Alonso, and that would make it a one-run ball game. For all the people that say that Jesse Winker's a non-factor on this team, you are once again a schmuck, and this is the latest example as to why. And I know Winker had a frustrating double play in extras, but Buddy absolutely smoked the ball, and it had an expected batting average of 600, so I don't want to hear it. Just unfortunate luck and some solid defense there by Minnesota. And Ty France especially has been eating everything up at first base. While there's been a lot of bad fundies with the Twins we saw in this series, Ty France was far from one of them. He was honestly one of the most impressive defenders I felt like we saw in this 3-game stretch with how well he handled first base for the most part. My thoughts on the Soto comment on Judge. Alvin, I broke down a video earlier today for you guys to check out on these Soto comments in depth. I'm really not going to expand on them much more here because I did that already. I spent a solid 10 plus minutes in today's video that dropped in the AM on how stupid the media conversation is on Juan Soto right now, and how he not only didn't say anything wrong, but how that is exactly the latest example of why players are not inclined to want to go out of their way to talk to people in the media, or even talking heads like myself to a degree, when we're going to take their words and try to twist them and portray them as something different than what it actually is. There was nothing wrong that Soto said, and that's all I have to say about that. Check out the entire video in case you guys haven't already, and thank you kindly for doing exactly that, everybody. Thank you also for smashing that like and subscribe button as your first chime in. It means a lot. I know that I absolutely steamrolled in this bad boy today, because again, Wardy's pissed. It's my first post game of the year that I'm actually mad to a degree, because even in the previous losses, I couldn't sit here being upset. And I know the Mets are going to be fine. This isn't like the sky's falling or anything like that. We're going to have a lot of bad losses this season. But when you had everything on a tee to set up for a series victory, and between Harrison Bader being the pain in the ass that he was this entire series, and between the Mets yet again having their fair share of struggles with runners on base up until that 8th inning, that is not going to be a recipe to have consistent success. And I know that this Mets pitching staff is going to continue to get more and more exposed. You can't expect them to be the best staff in baseball up until Manaea and Montas come back from injury. It isn't going to happen. So we can't just view, oh, we have the best team ERA in baseball, like it's going to stay that way all year long. Once the pitching starts to get more exposed, it's going to hit harder and harder and harder on the Mets struggling with the runners and scoring position front. But as we get back in this one, everybody, we saw in that 8th inning, again, tremendous job by Lindor with the single, Alonso with the RBI double, Winker with the RBI double, and you want to know who steps up after striking out 3 times today and not having the best at-bats while also not having the worst either, just unfortunately some bad luck. Luis Angel Acuna does a thing, and he rips a chopper of a single that just gets through the infield. No one can handle it on the left side, and that ties this ball game. Acuna then promptly steals second base right after, like the dog that he is, folks. And this is exactly why I have been preaching time and time again the past week and a half to 2 weeks plus as to why Luis Angel Acuna needs to be getting consistent reps at second base, why he deserves to be here. Buddy was a vacuum yet again at second base, was great with his base running, and is always making something happen. I cannot get over how good Luis Angel Acuna has looked this season, batting .263 with a just under 700 OPS. Who is complaining about that? Acuna is playing so good right now that the Mets are going to toy with their outfield configuration to favor Acuna getting more second base reps. And we're going to expand on that more in a video that is dropping in the AM. So make sure you guys check that out. And thank you so much for exactly that. Where do you feel like at one point our offense is going to carry us hard? Definitely not right now. 100%. This offense should carry this Mets team. And the fact that it hasn't that much yet, with the exception of Alonso, has obviously been frustrating, but it's part of the course in a 162. It's going to happen. Kevin, thank you so much for the $10 holla. JV, thank you guys for the donations, both of you. I'm going to answer them once I'm done breaking down this ball game, because we're almost there at the home stretch now, because the Mets tied it 3-3 that we saw. Taylor, unfortunately, would line out to end the inning because Harrison Bader made a tremendous catch that we saw in left field. That's why in the highlights you see beside me, you'll probably see Tyrone Taylor kind of saying stop it, laughing, and then dapping up and hugging Bader as he came off the field between innings there, because they're good buddies. They split time in center field last year. And even though that Tyrone won the battle between himself and Bader at center field, doesn't mean that they don't have a good relationship. Clearly they do, and they shared some good respect there in that moment. We get to the 9th inning. It's a tied ball game. So what does that mean? It's time for the flamethrowers to come out. We got for the Twins, we have Mr. Yon Duran, or how you guys pronounce it. Is it, I want to say it's Yon, but I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, everybody. Duran comes in, and right away, this is what happens, everybody. Lindor with a 2-out walk. Soto strikes out to then end the inning. Another bad at-bat for Juan Soto. And I know that Duran throws absolute gas. I'm not saying that was going to be an easy test whatsoever. But what I'm also saying... Oh, and I apologize, everybody. What I'm also saying is the fact that you saw Lindor get on. You've seen a lot of guys get on base in this game, and Soto was the one commonality, not even being able to get on via walks, which is very uncharacteristic of Juan Soto. That's why he's now batting .231 with .798 OPS this season. Not ideal, not what you're looking for, but that's the reality of this ball game. So after the Mets don't do anything in the top of the 9th, we get to the bottom of the 9th, and Harrison Bader was this close to winning the ball game in the 9th inning for the Minnesota Twins, because he gets on with a leadoff walk after a quality at bat between himself and Edwin Diaz, because of course Edwin has to walk the first batter he sees. God forbid Edwin had a 1-2-3 when he first goes out there. I'm waiting for that to be the case again, because it has been few and far in between, I feel, so far this season. But don't quote me on it, because it might just be recency bias. Bader with a walk and then a stolen bag, because everyone's running on Edwin Diaz. You could just walk to second base and you're going to likely steal if it's going to be against Edwin. But here's the thing. He wasn't safe. Upon review, we would come to find out that Luis Torrens, as you guys see in the highlights right there right now, actually got him out, because Bader just slid enough off of the bag, couldn't stay on, and after not what was a Mets challenge, but just an umpire overall review, and I'm grateful that they did that, because they realized that was the wrong call, thankfully. If only they could have done the same at first base innings prior, where Hunter absolutely screwed things, I digress. They would call that an out after the fact, and then Julian, who's in a 3-0 count for the Twins, ultimately strikes out. And then after that, another strikeout would end the inning as Byron Buxton Ks. So Edwin Diaz does a tremendous job on getting out of his early mess. Also has Torrens with that great arm there, a cannon at the catching position to drill him out at second base upon review. So the Mets now head to the 10th inning with Juan Soto, who's far from fast, sadly, commanding second base to lead things off. And how do things go from there? Alonso gets on with a leadoff walk. So the Mets have runners at first and second with no out. Winker grounds into a double play, but this double play allows Soto to get all the way to third with 2 away. So what happens from there, everybody? We would see WardyNYM with a first pitch pop-up in the infield, third base side, and that leads us to the bottom of the 10th. Byron Buxton's at second base. You already knew you were screwed. When I saw Byron beginning the inning at second base, I made sure to get my thumbnail set that the Mets were going to lose this game, because that's how confident I was that the Twins were going to score. Not that I wish it, but you see the writing on the wall sometimes, and that was a prime example of exactly that. Buxton is quickly driven in there that we saw, and that does it for the ball game. Ty France with the walk-off hit off of Reed Garrett, everybody, and that does it for a 4-3 Twins victory and an absolutely decimating series loss for a Mets team that they just knew how to hit their way at all with runners in scoring position. Things would have been better. And as much as it pains me to say, Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor's fingerprints were all over the past 2 losses for the Mets in the sense of not providing enough production when we need them to, and Lindor's costly error a day ago too can't go unnoticed. I respect the accountability. That's great from Lindor, and I hope we know we're going to see more of that, so I can't say I hope for it. I know it's always going to be a reoccurring thing. Doesn't change the fact that still Francisco Lindor, our star shortstop, and he needs to be better. The same way that Juan Soto on a $765 million contract, this better be one of a handful of games he has all season that he goes 0 for 5 with 3 Ks at least and no walks. I'm going to count it. I'm going to count it. This is not something that is okay. And I don't give a damn that it's just the one game that we've seen this happen with Soto. This is where the expectations come into play. This is where you have a rational Wardy who understands very well how the course of the 162 goes, while also understanding that if you're getting paid these amount of dollars, you have to make sure that you avoid games like this specifically. Even with players that get in their ruts, Juan Soto cannot have himself getting in a rut that's 0 for 5 where it's his fault. It's not the umpire's fault. It's his fault why he lost this game. Why he faltered the way that he did in this matchup is what I meant to say. Because over 5 is one thing. It's like, okay, he went over. Did he get on base at all via walks or errors? No, he didn't. And that's the most frustrating aspect. Soto was only on base today at second base and extras because he was the final out the inning prior. Otherwise, he wouldn't have even been there. So as much as I love Juan Soto, and I know that this man's going to be magical for this team this year, so I'm not trying to go too in on him whatsoever, but as I always say, and if you guys follow our post-game content here on the platform, we cover every single game throughout the course of the 162, then you know very well that the following goes. When things go right, I'm going to put you on a pedestal and explain what's so great about it. When things go wrong, I'm going to expose that and explain how it's not the end-all be-all, but obviously rightful criticism is deserved. And I think out of all the games that you could have criticized Juan Soto this season, there have been so many that I felt haven't been warranted nearly enough. This game is completely warranted. Anything that any fan has to say is rightfully so, and I'm not going to tell them to hold back or anything. This was a piss-poor game for Juan Soto, and it was a piss-poor game for the Mets that found themselves yet again absolutely, pardon my French, everybody. Cue the earmuffs, kiddos. I'll give you a 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Nothing short of a godforsaken dog shit experience with runners in scoring position yet again. The Minnesota Twins went 4 for 12 and left 9 on base. Surely the Mets could have pounced on their lack of offensive upside, but no, because the Mets equally suck with runners in scoring position. They were 3 for 12 with 9 left on base. And mind you, this is the same Mets team that yet again entered tonight's game, still a bottom feeder in the National League with their batting average with runners in scoring position, especially with 2 outs, runners in scoring position. So, what is the further breakdown to get into beyond just the frustration that as a Mets fan that we're kind of ranting and we're reacting with each and every one of you in the live show right now? I know we're in first place, Alvin, but if I'm being frank, I don't give a shit. I don't care at all that we're in first place. The Mets being in first place right now means as much to me about how much I'm going to care about this game 48 hours from now. I'm not going to give a shit. That's the reality of it, right? So this is the point where I like to talk about my viewpoint on standings. I don't care. Is it nice to see the Mets in first? Yes. But do I care literally at all right now? No. Because it's a 162. And I've had my heart broken too many times by hoping and thinking that the Mets will win the division. Then they fall short. And the latest example of that is 2022, where we covered every single game throughout the entire course of the season. That was such a brutal end to what was a magical run in that 101 win season. But now getting on from my rant on the runners in scoring position front, which again is ridiculous, let's talk more on maybe some positives in this one. And there are a couple positives that I would love to share. There's honestly like 4 positives in particular I want to get into this one, but I want to start with the guy that stood out, and that's Justin Hageman. I don't have a special slide for him in this one. I might in our Big Mets Updates video that'll drop in the AM for you guys, and we're also going to be having a really fun interview in that with a fellow talking head in the Mets space that has never been on the platform before, but is a fantastic human being and has a lot of knowledge. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that conversation, hearing their thoughts, as that'll pair directly with the topics that we have in our Big Mets Updates segment. Again, that'll drop in the AM barring changes. Maybe there's a sliver of a chance that'll drop late tonight, but probably early tomorrow, because I know you guys have enjoyed the routine we've been on for doing these things right around 10 a.m. or so, barring changes. Sorry, I didn't mean exactly the same thing as Zor. Quarantine, no worries, baby. Happy to have you in here. But Justin Hageman today, and 3.1 strong innings of work, he gave us the sinker 38% of the time, in which he had himself, let's look at the velo here, topping out 94, sitting 92, change up 30% of the time, topping out 87, sitting 86, cutter 26% of the time, topping out 87 and sitting right around 86, slider 6% of the time, topping out 84 and sitting right around 83. So that's what you got in the arsenal and the multi-pitch mix from Justin Hageman, and he deserves a lot of credit, in my opinion. Like, a lot of credit. And here's the reason why. Justin Hageman has not looked good so far this year in AAA, being stretched as a full-time starter. Not a slight on him, he just really hasn't looked that well. He's gotten rocked quite a bit that we've seen in Syracuse at this point. So he gets the last-minute call. His family makes a trip to Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're all in attendance, and you saw his wife or fiance, whichever one she was, kind of shaking in her boots after what was a deep fly ball by Lee, thankfully, that we saw for a fly out there that Juan Soto, I think, handled it if it wasn't someone else in the outfield. And then he goes 3.1 shutty up until, unfortunately, that run comes in because Jose Butto can't command at all. Has a meatball right for Harrison Bader as he rips one to left, and that drives in the run that's attached to Justin Hageman's final line here. But Hageman, what did he prove to the Mets today, everybody? Justin Hageman proved to the Mets today that he is a pitcher that they can turn back to for multiple innings of either work as a starter or a reliever, a Trevor Williams type that they may consider more throughout the course of the season. And this is why, if you guys remember this closely, in the early goings of this past offseason, Justin Hageman was one of the first moves that the Mets actually did. And what was the reason as to why they made that move? It was because they saw the upside with him being stretched as a starter from the successes that he's had not only in previous years with the Red Sox, was also in the Dodgers organization for a while too. There's clearly upside with Hageman, and the Mets see that. So while his stuff doesn't jump out on you, isn't dominant with the fastball, isn't overly dominant with his off-speed and breaking pitches whatsoever, but he just works some solid innings that we got today. And if the Mets have to defer to him again at some point this season, I'm not going to be kicking and screaming and crying right away, because at least I know from this sample size that he can handle some MLB hitters. Just a matter of how consistently can he do it. And is this just the beginning of Hageman having a larger role for the Mets this year? That's a fair question too. But what is the immediate reaction to Hageman? Well, he's going to get sent down. We know that. Hageman's going to get sent back down to AAA after this game. And what's going to happen tomorrow, officially, if not today, is that we're going to see Jose Siri placed on the injury list. Jose Azcar will be called up more than likely, unless it's Celestino there, who's been looking good there in AAA Syracuse as well as an outfield option. I just think it's Azcar's job to lose, barring changes right now. And then you're going to see, initially, we thought the Mets were going to potentially call up a Brandon Sproat type as a sixth starter because they were pondering the idea with concerns as to how healthy and ready we would see Griffin Canning tomorrow, because Canning has been dealing with an illness the past couple days. Just like Jesse Winker, who now is back from that illness, as we saw what a solid day at the plate for Jesse. Point is, though, is that with Canning officially back, the Mets don't have to dabble into any more of their starter depth. So guys in Brandon Sproat and Jose Urena, who are chilling right now in AAA Syracuse, they are going to continue to chill in AAA Syracuse for the time being, as the Mets do not need to defer to them right away as an option of a starter. They're going to go with Griffin Canning there for Game 1, and I'll probably have David Pearson there for Game 2, and then we'll go on from there. I do want to just double check to make sure I didn't say anything wrong there, so let me make sure that SNY relayed everything that I just said on the starting pitcher front. Yep, I was right. So we're getting Griffin Canning tomorrow and David Pearson on Friday. I have no clue how the boys are going to look tomorrow, but we are going to be live doing an entire watch party throughout the entire course of the ball game. So be on the lookout for that, everybody. Live in the Playback app, going playback.tv/WardyNYM. So watch the Mets game live in real time with your guy Wardy by simply downloading the app, sign up for free, and log into your MLB TV subscription should you have one. And the best news is that if you don't have an MLB TV subscription, but you still want to hang out with Wardy throughout the entirety of the game, don't worry. We're going to be live on YouTube simulcasted, showing a scoreboard, so that way you guys don't miss a beat, regardless on whichever way you want to consume the content. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow, everybody. When all your options suck, you take the least sucky option, which is Lindor right now. What are we talking about, Zach? What are we talking about? What's the context? Unless I'm missing what's going back and forth here. I'm talking about leadoff hitter options. We're obviously not putting Pete there 100%. But here's the thing. You're not moving Lindor out of the leadoff spot, because Lindor hasn't been enough of an offensive liability for the Mets to do it. Furthermore, Lindor got in his groove last year by batting leadoff, just like he did plenty with Cleveland. You really think the Mets are going to move Lindor out of the leadoff spot anytime soon? Not a chance in hell it happens. If Lindor is not batting leadoff for even one game over the next 2 weeks where he's healthy, I will be jaw-dropped, and I'll do a giveaway on the channel of a Francisco Lindor jersey, because that's how confident I am that there's not a chance in hell it's going to happen. Juan Soto is also more than likely not going to move out of the 2-hole, regardless of the fact that he's now batting .231 with a .798 OPS. When you have it roughly 800 OPS still, it is not enough to warrant any drastic changes. Alonso's doing his thing. Jesse Winker had a great game today. He's now at a 200 average and a 656 OPS. Brandon Nimmo's at a 203 average with a 683 OPS. I love Brandon Nimmo to death, but he's clearly struggling to get a groove on with runners on base, because we've seen the home runs and we've seen the doubles, but the majority of the production that we've seen from Nimmo on this road trip has not been with multiple guys on the way that you need him to step up in the 4 or 5 spot. Acuna, another very good day for Luis Angel. Even though he started with 3 strikeouts, that huge game-tying RBI was a difference maker for sure. Now at 263 with a 691 OPS, as we stated earlier. Tyrone Taylor 1 for 4 in this matchup with a 163 OPS and a 163 average and a 409 OPS. The Mets could utilize some more offense there. Brett Baty with a solid day at the plate. Like I said, guys, Brett Baty, his performance is going to get lost in this one, and it's a shame because Baty played, in my opinion, his best game of the season so far for the Mets. Had himself a 2 for 4 game, and even though I know he had the triple against the Athletics, this was more impressive in my opinion. He hit both. He pulled a baseball and went the opposite way and had a great defense that we saw the hot corner. Quick reactions to get guys like Harrison Bader out at home. There were encouraging signs from Brett Baty today, which is crazy to say, but I'm not complaining about it. Hayden Sanger and Luis Torrens both didn't record a hit. Sanger's at a 227 average, 534 OPS. Torrens is now down to 275 with a 785 OPS, and Torrens' numbers will continue to trickle down, unfortunately, just because that's the nature of the game for a catcher that was off to season red hot, but is likely not going to stay red hot throughout the entire course of the same. Let's see. Rested Kranick for Canyon start too. Kranick isn't rested. I don't know what makes you see that. Max just pitched 1.1 yesterday. I mean, the Mets can defer to Kranick tomorrow should they wish. They technically sent him down today, but he isn't even touching Syracuse. It's just a corresponding move to make official then tomorrow, so that way when Jose Siri's placed on the injury list, the Mets can defer to bring Kranick right back up versus having to have him stay a mandatory 15 days in the minor leagues. Thankfully, the Mets don't have to have that happen with Kranick. They simply sent him down on the technicality that they just need to make roster room for Hageman today, and that was that. Another sloppy day, weak hitting and bad fielding. You're 100% right in NY. That's just the reality of the situation in the series. And the boys had their opportunities. It's not like they didn't. If the Mets didn't go, mind you, they had 10 hits to the Twins 9. They did have bad luck on their side today. They had a 337 expected batting average to the Twins 205. The Mets deserve to have better offensive turnout than what they got today. But one, defense was strong, including guys like Harrison Bader in left field for them. We also saw Jesse Winker unfortunately ground into a double play on what was a scorching liner on a 600 expected batting average of a contact that we saw in the extras, so not ideal either. But outside of that, folks, it just comes down to the runners in scoring position. I don't really think there's much more of a drum that I need to beat than the following. When you go 3 for 12 and leave 9 on base, you're not going to be happy as a Mets fan. You know what I mean? And as things are currently looking right now, they need to get in a groove because Alonso is only going to be able to single-handedly carry this team for so long. We need to see other guys really step up. Do the errors concern me, Wardy? Good question. They don't overly concern me, especially on the Lindor front, but obviously not ideal to have your star shortstop have 4 errors as we now reach middle April. The other errors, there really weren't too many that were costly. The last really, really big costly error outside of Lindor's yesterday that I feel that we've seen is Beatty's error that he had against Tyler McGill, getting absolutely screwed that inning against the Marlins in the series finale, in which I was in attendance there for the finale of the homestand, the Mets' first homestand of the season a week ago. Beatty had a really botched throw that should have been a routine play in the infield. That allowed the inning to continue, and runs ultimately scored, and that screwed up Tyler McGill's final line because there were 2 runs charged, but only 2 of them, the only 2 runs that were charged were unearned runs, so there was nothing on his earned run average, but still, it worked his count quite a bit, and obviously he wasn't happy about that. Miguel's never happy when he has bad defense, and sadly, that's the case what feels like every single time that he's playing, either by some bad fundies in the infield or something bad in the outfield. Thank you for the great oh, yeah, Eddie, yes, you were gifted just this past day or two a membership, Eddie. We're happy to have you in here as always. Again, thank you so much for being in here, for being a great member. We appreciate you. Word on Mania that we broke down 2 days ago in a Big Mets Updates video. Again, guys, when it comes to Mets updates, when it comes to stuff on the health front, when it comes to stuff on the transactional front, when it comes to a lot of the miscellaneous topics that are not centered to the game itself, I have them all for you every single day in a different video that usually drops drops in the AM, barring changes based on the Mets schedule. So, like for example, today we dropped a video in the AM, 10 a.m. on Juan Soto, the latest prospect report. Francisco Alvarez looking good in rehab, but also got hit, which is an ideal, in the same hand that he got injured with. And Jeff McNeil, as he continues to look good. And we're going to expand more on that, given how they fared today and their latest rehab outings, along with another prospect report and a bunch of other topics that we're going to get into with a special guest that, again, will drop either late tonight or early tomorrow for each and every one of you. Let's see. Well, at least they showed us some fight. April is by far our easiest month, and we need to capitalize 1,000%. On paper, you're right. The Mets don't have a schedule that's favorable to them like the month of April until we get to the final month of the season. For the first time in what feels like forever, the Mets' final month of the season is not a gauntlet where they're in Atlanta, in Milwaukee, in Philly, or just somewhere that's going to be a recipe for disaster, and that be that. So as we go month by month, this month is huge for the Mets because you have the Cardinals for a 4-game stretch starting tomorrow. You got the Phillies for 3. You got the Nats for 3 and Arizona for 2 before you get into May. Not that you're going to win every game, but these are all series that the Mets should win. I have confidence that the Mets are better than every single team, even the Diamondbacks, even those Phillies. I know they can and should be. Whether or not they will be is yet to be seen. But in May, the Mets play the Cardinals in Arizona. They play the Cardinals, then they play Arizona again, both on the road. Cubs, Pirates at home. Yankees, Red Sox back-to-back away. Dodgers, White Sox, and Rockies for a homestand. So homestand starts difficult, but then eases up quite a bit for the final week of May. In June, this is a gauntlet. You're on the road to face the Dodgers. Then you're on the road to face Colorado. Then we have the Nationals. Tampa Bay Rays for a homestand. Then we're back on the road for the worst stretch of games, what feels like all summer, from, of course, June 17th to what is going to be June 26th. You're in Atlanta, you're in Philly, and then you're back home for Atlanta. And I say that because I know damn well the Braves are going to be better than their 5-13 record that they're showing right now. They're going to play the Mets hard. They're going to get in a groove. And we know that once Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back to this team as well, they're going to take a step forward in the right direction. The Pittsburgh Pirates are the final series on the road there in June. In the month of July, folks, to expand further, we got Milwaukee at home, Yanks at home. Then we're on the road for Baltimore and Kansas City, which will not be easy leading up to the All-Star break. Then we're back home for the Cincinnati Reds, the LA Angels, then on the road for a West Coast trip for the Giants and the Padres, which will be a gauntlet to wrap up July, which then leads us to the month of August, in which we're going to be doing some exciting things, everybody. Be on the lookout. Official announcement of Wardy Day that will be happening sooner or later at Citi Field coming soon. We got multiple events set up right now, and if you guys want to get in on getting early access to our pre-sale for the tickets, in which we already have a lot of people that have early access to it, check it out by using my email, official WardyNYM@gmail.com. Again, that is official WardyNYM@gmail.com, and email me your name and how many tickets you have interest in our pre-sale. We're doing a complete day at Citi Field where your guy Wardy, where you're going to hang out with me the entire game. We're going to watch together in this sweet area. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lounge area rather, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff pre-game and even potentially stuff post-game as well. But that'll all be announced shortly once we have everything formalized. But if you guys want to get in on the pre-sale for that, check it out by emailing me again at officialWardyNYM@gmail.com. Then when it is officially announced and I have the tickets out for each and every one of you, I will reach out to each and one of you guys individually that email me to give you guys early access to tickets should you still have interest in purchasing them once you find out the total price point and all the perks that come along with it. But I digress. Let's reel back into talking about the schedule for a second, because we would see in August, we got the Giants and the Guardians back-to-back at home. Then we got the Milwaukee Brewers away, the Atlanta Braves at home, the Mariners at home, Nationals and Atlanta away, Philly home, and the Marlins home. Then that leads us to September, and this was my exact point, everybody. September is as follows. You're facing Detroit and the Reds away, which isn't ideal, but not the end of the world either. Then you have a 4-game gauntlet in Philly against those Phillies, second week of September. Then you're home against the Texas Rangers and potentially Jacob deGrom's return to Citi Field, towing the rubber, if he stays healthy, that is. And then you got the Padres and the Nationals at home. And then your final 2 series are the Chicago Cubs, which granted are playing great baseball right now, but a lot can change from then till now. And your final series of the year is in Miami against the Marlins. While, yes, the Marlins are always a pest, it is at least encouraging to know that the Mets don't have endless playoff caliber teams to face to wrap up the season. That was my point from the get-go here. I do have some donations I do want to address, so again, thank you guys kindly for them from earlier in the show. Let's start here with Kevin, who has the $10 holla, and he states the following. Can everyone calm down on Juan Soto and clean the media media reporting nonsense and direct questions. I implore chat to look at Soto's career in April. He's a 254 hitter in April. There you go. So some context, a little bit of a slow starter, that being in Soto, at least with contact ability. Thank you for the donation, Kevin. I appreciate that. JV with the donation as well states, Nimmo needs to revisit his hitting approach. He's been terrible. Here's the problem. Brandon Nimmo is stuck in this kind of like purgatory of I don't know what I should be because I'm not a plate center anymore. I don't lead things off for this team anymore. And I know I have power, but I'm still battling between getting on base and trying to hit for gap-to-gap ability when I go up there each time with runners in scoring position. I think Nimmo has a little bit of an identity crisis right now, just in the sense that he's trying to figure out how to get himself truly comfortable and acclimated throughout the entire course of the year, batting more fourth and fifth. Whereas last year, he still started in leadoff, and then that gradually changed from him being in leadoff to out of that spot for Lindor once we got into mid-late May, and then the rest is history from there. But let's also not forget, Nimmo stepped up big time for the Mets when he was out of the leadoff spot, but that went in hand because he had a good amount of reps, if I'm not mistaken, in the two-hole for a bit. Then we saw Vientos in the two-hole for a bit. We saw various guys there. And Nimmo, before he went down with a plantar fasciitis that really hurt him in the second half of the season, he was looking great with the home run ability, not batting leadoff for this Mets team. So we'll see what happens on his front. But let's get to some more comments now, everybody. In the chat, we got JV with another donation. Thank you so much again for that. JV stayed the following here, which is, can you comment on Edwin Diaz's, propensity to always walk his first batter? It seems like a constant trend this last season. His outings are never easy. Yeah, they're never easy. You're right. And sadly, that's kind of the deal when you have a flamethrowing right-hander that only has 2 pitches. And even with him getting ramped up and warmed up, kind of needs that first batter or two to start to get in a groove. That's why, thankfully, Diaz got out of his own mess and did it beautifully with back-to-back strikeouts, working from a 3-0 count to a striking out Julian, and then also strike out Byron Buxton was nothing short of impressive. But yes, it is a continued problem that we've seen with Edwin Diaz. No, I don't expect it to immediately change. It's just something that we have to hope throughout the course of the season this year that he gradually gets better and can command things better and not find himself in the same exact hole each time where he's allowing that leadoff walk. Because again, if it isn't for Harrison Bader sliding off second base, he was more than likely going to be driven in if Diaz was going to be a little unsettled there. And I'm sure Diaz felt a lot more comfortable after finding out that his former teammate in Harrison Bader was actually out upon review, as you guys see right there at second base. If that doesn't happen, that may have very well been the demise for Edwin Diaz in this outing, but we'll never know. Thank you for that donation, JV. Blindbeard, my man, how are you? Thank you so much for the donation. What a beauty he is. Let's see. Ridiculous loss should not have happened. Soto with the golden sombrero. Feel bad for Umpire who got hit. So pissed. Mets play better. You're awesome. Blindbeard, you're awesome. Thank you so much for the endless support. It was an absolute blast bowling with you at Port St. Lucie during spring training. Still can't get over the fact that you have a significant eyesight issue where you're technically legally blind, yet you're able to bowl, and you're kind of a wild thing. Like, again, Vince Vaughn straight out of Major League, where you throw gas, but you don't know where it's going. Context, everybody. Blindbeard in the chat. I've talked about him before, but I'll say it again. Diehard Mets fan. Big fan of the community. I've met him at Mets games in previous years. Went out of his way to actually watch my live show that I did in Duffy's Sports Bar and spring training this past spring with my guy Mike from Stark Raving Sports and Jim from Ballcap Sports. Him, along with some of his friends and some other people, actually did a group outing of a bowling event because we were connected to a bowling alley there at Duffy's Sports Bar. Little did I know that Buddy was an absolute king when it came to all the bar games. So when it comes to bowling, darts, pool, you name it, he is an absolute G with it. And I don't know how he does it, but he does it. Legit. He keeps his head down. He's just trying to focus as to what he can kind of see, because if he looks at you straight up, he can't see you fully. Like, your face goes away as soon as you try to start looking at him. That's what he told me, at least. So it was very fascinating to hear what he's dealing with, because one, I feel terrible about it, obviously. But secondly, it's really impressive to see what he can do and how he's not letting that stop him from being an athlete in a way, because he goes up to bowl. Buddy throws 10 miles per hour harder than anyone else in the group. It's not an understatement. Throwing this thing at least 30 miles per hour, and he absolutely nails a strike on the first ball he throws, and he falls over because of how much momentum he had in the throw. And again, doesn't know where the ball's going, just has a rough idea as to where he's trying to place it when he steps up to get to the line. I can't get over it. It's crazy, but Blindbeard, you're a beauty. Thank you again for that donation. That was absolutely sick. Let's see here. So just had games with back-to-back homers. How quickly we forget. Oh, absolutely, yeah. For all the fans out there that are saying Juan Soto's a bum and saying all this shit, saying, you know, he shouldn't be on the team, all this stuff, those are going to be the fans that are always going to pounce on Juan Soto's struggles. Now, here today, I thought I was pretty rational, maybe a little overreactionary, but I thought I was pretty content by saying, listen, I love Juan Soto. I know he's going to do great things for this Mets team throughout the course of the season. It doesn't change the fact that he played like shit today. And the reason why it sticks out like a sore thumb is when you don't hit with runners in scoring position, and the largest contract in North American sports history plays a factor into that, we're going to talk about it. We're always going to talk about it. And if I wasn't here live with you guys doing a post-game show, I would have been ranting with my friends or family, talking about the exact same thing on how how Soto just didn't have it today. He wasn't good. But that's okay, because I know that today isn't the end of the world. The sky's not falling yet, at least. I'm pretty sure. So as we get into tomorrow's game, in which we're going to do full in-game coverage and post-game coverage, hopefully we see Juan Soto ball out big time, because the Mets continue what's going to be now a really, really important stretch for them, getting back home for 2 series, because we saw how great the Mets were in their previous homestand. For those that are not recalling how good the Mets were just back at home, they had their homestand record currently sitting at, what is it? We're 5-1 at home so far this season. Great start to the year. Need to take this series in the 4-game set against the Cardinals. Have to win in that bloodbath of a 3-game set against the Phillies, and then go on from there, everybody. But folks, guys and gals, I think that is about going to do it for our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show, and a nice little bit of a recap on the series as a whole. So again, everybody, be on the lookout, as we will have a video dropping either later tonight or certainly at absolute latest early tomorrow. End-game coverage, post-game coverage live here on the platform for that Cardinals series beginning this Thursday. And until then, folks, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your night to evening whenever you're watching this. D-Mac, my guys, Daniel, great members, Scott, how you doing? Everybody, Rick, come on. We appreciate you guys greatly. Smash a like and subscribe on your way out. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace out.